Metal, non-metal common contractor citations. CFR 30 Parts 56 and 57 are the mandatory safety and health standards set forth for each surface and underground metal and non-metal mine. The purpose of these standards is for the protection of life, the promotion of health and safety, and the prevention of accidents. Let's take a look at the citations that are most commonly issued to contractors. These citations normally fall under CFR 30, Parts 47, Hazard Communications, Part 46, Training and Retraining of Miners, and Parts 56-57, Safety and Health Standards, Surface and Underground, Metal, Non-Metal. There are many standards in each part which the contractor must comply with. This section identifies only the most commonly cited standards. Additional information regarding standards can be found in MSHA's Program Policy Manual and Procedure Instruction Letters located on MSHA's website. Detailed information on Parts 46, 47, and 62 can be found elsewhere in this DVD. Container labels and other forms of warning. Containers housing hazardous chemicals must be labeled. During use or transport, labels sometimes become missing or unreadable. When this happens, the label must be replaced. Warning signs: smoking and open flames. Contractors often store their flammables and combustible material in temporary structures such as pole sheds, trailers, or even in the open. Posting of warning signs prohibiting smoking or open flames, even in these conditions, is required. Firefighting equipment should also be readily available so anyone can quickly access it without being endangered. Firefighting equipment, general requirements. Firefighting equipment for fighting fires in the early stages must be present and strategically placed. If the mine site has not coordinated with a local fire department to fight fires beyond the early stages, then firefighting equipment for fighting fires beyond the early stages must also be present. Firefighting equipment must be of the type, size, and quantity that can extinguish fires of any class which could occur as a result of the hazards present. It should be noted that multi-purpose fire extinguishers must contain a nominal 4.5 pounds or more of dry chemical agent. Make sure you coordinate with the mine site manager to ensure that proper firefighting equipment is available and appropriate arrangements have been made with the local fire department. Don't blindly assume that the mine site will have the necessary quantity of firefighting assets on hand, or the type of assets to fight the fires that you may be in need of in the event of a fire. Firefighting equipment inspection. Firefighting equipment, extinguisher recharging or replacement. To ensure their proper operation, fire extinguishers must be visually inspected at least once a month to determine that they are fully charged and operable. A record of monthly inspections must be maintained indicating the date of the inspection and can be recorded in a book or on a tag that accompanies the extinguisher. At least once every 12 months, maintenance checks must be made of mechanical parts, the amount and condition of the extinguishing agent and expellant. This inspection is normally done by a commercial vendor and must be recorded. Additionally, fire extinguishers shall be hydrostatically tested per manufacturer recommendation, usually once every 12 years. If a fire extinguisher is discharged, even briefly, it must be promptly recharged or replaced with a fully charged extinguisher. Firefighting equipment, self-propelled equipment. On self-propelled mobile equipment, the presence and location of a fire extinguisher is determined by whether a fire could impede the operator's escape. If a fire or its effects could impede escape from the equipment, a fire extinguisher must be on the equipment. If a fire or its effects would not impede escape, but could affect the escape of other persons in the area, a fire extinguisher must be on the equipment or within 100 feet of the equipment. Berms or guardrails. If elevated roadways have a drop-off of a sufficient grade or depth that could cause a vehicle to overturn or endanger persons and equipment, berms or guardrails must be present. The berms or guardrails must be at least mid-axle height of the largest piece of self-propelled mobile equipment that usually travels the roadway. The berms may have openings to the extent where necessary for roadway drainage. Berms and guardrails are common at mine sites. If you're working where a berm is needed, you're expected to build the berm according to MSHA's requirements. If you need help or guidance, be sure to contact the site manager. Travelways, safe access. Travelways provide a safe means of passage and access to the many work areas and workplaces that are located on mine property. These travelways need to be maintained and kept free of debris. There are numerous working places on a mine site. They can be in the pit or plant area or in the maintenance facilities. They can also be in places you don't expect, such as in tunnels, elevated areas, and open spaces. If work is being performed there, it is a working place, and safe access must be made. Safe access can be impeded by materials such as tools, rocks, dust, ice, snow, maintenance or construction material, even the absence of ladders, stairs, work platforms, or tie-off points for those working where a fall might occur. Electricity. Electrical conductors. Electrical wiring is ever present at mine sites. As a contractor, you are likely to encounter wiring or even use or install wiring of your own. If you are using or installing wiring, it must meet MSHA's requirements. When working around wiring, installing wiring, or using extension cords, be aware that they must be protected from mechanical damage. Mechanical damage can result from running over wires with equipment, rubbing against vibrating parts, or being struck by rocks or construction material. You should also be alerted to insulation damage. Insulation can be damaged from welding sparks and cutting torches, among other things. Electricity. Distribution boxes. Distribution boxes must be provided with a disconnecting device for each branch circuit. Each disconnecting device must be designed so that it can be determined by visual observation that the circuit is de-energized. The box must also be labeled to show which circuit each device controls. Potentially dangerous conditions must be corrected before equipment or wiring is energized. Machinery and equipment safety defects. Examination, correction, and records. Equipment operators must inspect self-propelled mobile equipment before being placed in operation. If any defects are detected during this inspection, they must be corrected in a timely manner to prevent hazards. When these defects continue to make operation hazardous, the defective items such as self-propelled mobile equipment must be taken out of service and tagged to prohibit further use until the defects are corrected. Defects on self-propelled mobile equipment that are not corrected immediately must be recorded and kept from the date the defects are recorded until the defects are corrected. Machinery and equipment. Brakes. Citations are often written for service or parking brakes on self-propelled mobile equipment. Service brakes must be capable of stopping and holding the equipment with its typical load on the maximum grade it travels. Parking brakes must be capable of holding under the same conditions. All braking systems installed on equipment must be maintained in a functional condition. Machinery and equipment, moving machine parts. Moving machine parts that can cause injuries must be guarded to protect persons from contacting them. If the exposed moving parts are at least 7 feet away from walking or working surfaces, they are considered to be guarded by location, and a physical guard is not required. Moving machine parts aren't limited to crushers and conveyors. Self-propelled and mobile equipment have moving parts that may need guarding as well. Machinery and equipment, rollover protective structures, ROPS, and seat belts. Machinery and equipment, seat belts for haulage trucks. This standard addresses a number of issues regarding rollover protective structures, ROPS construction, labeling, installation, alterations and exemptions, as well as seatbelt construction. The topic of ROPS cannot be adequately addressed in this video, and it is strongly recommended that you review this entire standard to determine if your equipment meets ROPS requirements. ROPS must meet specific construction and installation requirements and must be labeled appropriately. For specific information regarding ROPS, refer to this standard at the MSHA website. Contractors often receive citations for not having ROPS installed, for altering the ROPS structure, or for having a missing or unreadable label. Citations are often received for not having or wearing a seatbelt in a haulage truck. MSHA expects contractors to periodically check operators to ensure seatbelts are being worn. Other times, citations are received because the seatbelt is not functional. Seatbelts should be examined during the operator's pre-shift inspection. Horns and backup alarms. Self-propelled mobile equipment that does not have a clear view to the rear must have audible warning devices to alert persons that the equipment is backing up. Backup alarms must be in a functional condition, and the equipment cannot be operated without them unless a spotter is present to signal when it is safe to back up. Backup warning devices must be audible above the surrounding noise level. At night, an automatic reverse-activated strobe light may be used in lieu of an audible alarm. Parking procedures for unattended equipment. Mobile equipment should not be left unattended unless the controls are placed in the park position and the parking brake, if provided, is set. MSHA does not provide a definition for unattended. Useful interpretations that have been successful define unattended as when the operator cannot access the controls, or when the operator is on the ground. When parked on a grade, the wheels or tracks of mobile equipment shall be either chocked or turned into a bank. Numerous citations have been written for this standard. Particular attention must be paid to unattended mobile equipment parked on a grade. To determine if you are on a grade, you can put the transmission in neutral. If the equipment rolls, you're on a grade. When on a grade, in addition to putting the controls in park and setting the parking brake, you must chock the wheels or turn them into a berm or bank. As an alternative to chocks or berms, you may position the front or rear wheels in a ditch or trough. This standard applies to all off-road and on-road self-propelled equipment used on mine property, including vehicles such as vans, Suburbans, and pickup trucks. It also includes vendors, visitors, and contractors. Personal protection, safety belts and lines. When working from elevated areas where there is danger of falling, safety belts and lines are to be worn. If you're working in bins, tanks, or other dangerous areas, a second person similarly equipped must tend the lifeline of the other. Notice that MSHA regulations require the wearing of fall protection equipment when there is a danger of falling. MSHA standards do not specify a minimum height above which fall protection must be worn. Materials storage and handling. Securing gas cylinders. Compressed and liquid gas cylinders should be secured in a safe manner. This includes small tanks that are sometimes used. Cylinders must be kept upright and secured to prevent them from falling over. Safety programs. Examination of working places. MSHA defines a working place as any place in or about a mine where work is being performed and requires each working place to be examined by a competent person. This examination must be made at least once each shift for conditions that may adversely affect safety or health. If any of these conditions are found, prompt action to correct the conditions are required. If conditions present an immediate danger, persons working in the area must be immediately withdrawn until the danger is abated. Records of these examinations must be retained for 1 year and made available for review. Miscellaneous housekeeping. Housekeeping is a serious issue at mine sites. Poor housekeeping can bring about trips, slips, and falls that can cause injuries. Poor housekeeping can also lead to fires or provide fuel for fires. To prevent this from happening, keep workplaces, passageways, storerooms, and service rooms free of clutter and in an orderly condition. Also check floors of work areas for wet conditions and holes, splinters, loose boards, and nails. Barricades and warning signs. Some areas may contain safety and health hazards that aren't immediately obvious. Conditions such as hazardous vapors, loose ground, high noise areas, materials, equipment, or persons working overhead are examples. When these conditions exist, they must be barricaded and have warning signs posted that display the nature of the hazard and provide information about any protective action required.